College of Eastern Idaho, welcome. It is wonderful to have you on this Friday. It's sunny this Friday. What a wonderful thing. Maybe we'll get a few more of these. It is going to be. I think we're going to have a great weekend. This is a treat for me to have Bob Odenthal with us, and I think almost all of you know him. Probably should know him. He's our director of security here and been with us a little over a year. And I think a lot of you know we went from private security and decided to bring this all in-house. So Bob is our first chief of security, and we have a litany of topics. We'll see how far we get in 45 minutes, Bob. But a really good way to start is just give us a quick background on where you came from, and you got a pretty extensive law enforcement background.
Yeah, a little bit. I spent 10 years with the LA County Sheriff's Department, and I was assigned to a school unit. So I was posted at Antelope Valley College in Lancaster.
Good.
And in that time, we patrolled the campus and dealt with the issues. I mean, when I was there, I think roughly about 15,000 students or so.
So we're tiny.
Yeah,
you got classes bigger than this college.
Yeah, the main satellite campus for AV College has about the same amount of students as we do here. So,
right.
So we, I dealt with a lot of different things, and I kind of prided myself on training. I pushed to do as many active shooter trainings as possible, and so I think I have close to 20 department sanctioned trainings. And then we did, once or twice a month, we would do our own just through our college and our substation, just to get used to our buildings and knowing what's going on around our campus. And then, probably about 3 years in, I said, cool, patrol is great, but I want to learn more. And so I got put on the campus emergency response team.
Good.
And started learning about FEMA and the ICS system and, SIMS and NIMS and a whole bunch of emergency management stuff. That's really interesting, a lot of fun for me. And so I kind of know a lot about the ins and outs of how to run the campus and keep everybody safe through different emergencies, not just active shooters, but
exactly,
bad weather and sinkholes and whatever else could happen, So
that's right.
But yeah, I worked a lot to learn the ins and outs of the college, not just law enforcement, because I wanted to know the risk management side, the emergency management side, the bid process, things like that, just so I knew how everything works. And, it works out for here, because now running this, I get to deal with all of it, so it's been fun.
And we really haven't gotten a whole lot into emergency response, so those kind of things that if power goes out for an extended period of time and continuity of service and all of that. But you've got a wonderful background. So why would you come to Idaho Falls from beautiful, beautiful Antelope and Lancaster?
Well, so you obviously haven't been there, because it's not that beautiful.
It's desert. Okay.
Yeah, it's desert.
Okay.
It's pretty bad desert. I think culture and the ability to, raise your kids in an area where they can be more involved in the community and things is important. And having three kids, my wife and I wanted to move somewhere that we could, allow them to go outside. Where we were, besides the weather being, super hot or super cold, the crime was just skyrocketing.
Sure.
They couldn't go in the backyard to play. They couldn't, couldn't really go anywhere. My wife and I, if we wanted to go shopping, you had to kind of come up with a plan. And yes, I know I'm a little neurotic, working in law enforcement, but we plan, where exits are and what time of day to go. And it gets tiring, and my wife's family living out here, when we came to visit, the kids and I fell in love with it, and
good.
We were able to do that. And I'm very happy I'm here instead of
there.
So.
This is a good fit. We're happy you're here as well. So that makes a lot of sense. One easy way to start, and we have to do these reports, the Clary reports, but real quick for everyone who's viewing, how safe is CEI itself, and what kinds of things, what kind of crime are you seeing on campus?
Luckily for us, knock on wood, it's been a pretty quiet year.
Right.
We've had some squirrel incidents.
We're familiar. Yeah,
and
those are oddities.
I guarantee everyone watching kind of giggled right now.
It is.
So there is that kind of thing, but for the most part, the campus community, they get along and everybody's here for the same goal. It's
Right.
Get an education, and the crime in the area. Working with IFPD in Bonneville County, they'll share things with me, crime wise,
Mm-hmm.
and we're luckily right now kind of in a bubble. And I know, IFPD's mentioned, things might end here. They might get somebody on the grass, but the crime's not here.
So it isn't committed here. We're not seeing people
not
breaking
seeing
into buildings
No.
or assaults or those
No,
kinds of things.
and that's lucky for us. And I know my officers work hard to stay visible and make sure everybody knows we're on campus, and that is a deterrent, because if you're going to try to steal a car or break in, you don't want security going by.
You really
So
don't. No.
So they do a great job of being out there and being visible, walking and driving and just talking to people and making sure their presence is known.
So how many officers do you have then that are here on campus?
So we have 4 part-time officers.
Good. Okay.
And 3 during the week, and then 1 that works Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Good. Okay. Perfect. So I mentioned this to you, and I'll mention it to everyone watching. So when we had our private security here, a contracted security, I'd say about every week I would get a complaint from someone about them overemphasizing rules and policies and procedures, and it just, they didn't seem to balance that. And to your credit, I haven't had one. I'll probably break the streak, but whatever you're doing, you're able to handle it in a way that isn't oppressive to either faculty, staff, or students. So talk a little bit about your approach.
So a big thing in law enforcement is there's the letter of the law and the spirit of the law.
Right.
Letter of the law, speed limit's 25. Spirit of the law is, well, they're going 30. It's 5 miles an hour over. They're going with flow traffic. It's fine, and you don't get pulled over.
Okay.
I use that same philosophy here. There's policies that if you actually read them and understand them, you don't have to get upset when there's a dog on campus because
Right.
they're following the guidelines. And I know I have an officer watching right now laughing about the dog thing because that is a joke.
Sure, there are dog things. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where, you can be a stickler about everything, or you can realize that, people are just functioning. They're trying to go to class. They're worrying about tests and other things. Allow them to do that. You can remind people, like we discussed masks. I don't need to stop someone. Hey, what's your name? What are you doing? Why don't you have a mask?
Exactly. Yeah, I see your driver's license.
Yeah,
I haven't heard that.
There's no need for that.
Right.
It's just something where, something simple like that. Just, hey, can you throw a mask on for me? Yeah, no problem. And they keep going. It's just an exchange as you're passing by, and that's how we run a lot of things. It's the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law. Some things you have to follow the letter of the law.
Well, you do, and there's health and safety, which are different
Right.
than a lot of these. And I talk about this all the time. So our institution is more than just the faculty in classrooms teaching, and you understand that. You're part of that experience here at the college. So you bring kind of 2 ends of the spectrum. One is you're expected to protect the college,
Right.
and be security. And if something begins to get out of hand, you'll bring the police department in. But your job is to try to de-escalate it, and you're good at that. And then on the other hand, you're here helping students, and your officers are here helping students.
Yeah. And I think each officer I've had, when they get hired, I tell them, go learn the buildings.
Right.
Know where each classroom is, know where, study halls are, know where computer labs are, whatever it is. That way, when a student comes and says, I'm lost,
Right.
This semester actually it was great because the first day of classes, you wouldn't believe how many people came into our building looking for a room, and it's in building 6. They automatically funnel right into our office, and I was in there a few times by myself, and I had an officer in there, and we knew where to go, and I think that helps because the student can relax a little bit and get to class and do their thing,
and that's what we
know.
Yeah. So here's something that I know the faculty are really going to want to know about, and you could help them as we think about it. But if you're a faculty member and you have a disruptive student, tell the faculty what they should do. So a student has been escalating for whatever reason, and now the faculty member feels like that student ought not be in class. So how do they connect with you, and then what do you do to de-escalate this?
So, obviously, once the student's not listening anymore, we need to be called. And so when the officer or myself get there, we'll get the attention of the teacher so that if situations change so rapidly that it's possible from the time we leave our office to the time we get to the classroom that students left. Mm-hmm. And the instructor's teaching again.
Right.
And so we want to make sure we get a hold of the instructor so we're not interrupting something, because instruction is the main point.
Right.
Right. So, if the instructor comes and says, student A doesn't want to leave or doesn't want to comply with whatever, then, again, we want the instruction to continue. So we want to get them outside into the hallway.
Good.
Once they're in the hallway, then we can discuss what's going on, allow that teacher to go back inside.
Good.
And continue class and try to get everybody settled, because it does kind of rally everybody and get everybody kind of antsy. So the instructor needs to take control of that class again. So we let them do that.
Perfect.
And then if the student is still not cooperating, then we would call Mike Walker
mm-hmm.
and allow him to get involved. And if he's not able to get them to cooperate, then we would trespass them, and then IFPD would be involved. And if they come back on campus before, and they're instructed by Mike or whoever,
right,
then they can be arrested for trespassing. And so IFPD is, worked with us to explain that process so that we know as an officer, I have to be willing to sign that line saying, yes, this is what's happening. But if the student escalates it to that point, that's kind of what needs to be done. Classes have to go on, and we understand students get upset about things, but you can't stop a class,
You really can't.
Yeah.
And students are under a lot of pressure now. There's a lot of complexity to students' lives. You hope there's not alcohol or drugs, but we're not naive enough to think that it isn't. And to be able to de-escalate that, or just know at what level to escalate up to the point of calling IFPD.
Yeah, and working with IFPD and hearing their complaints about previous security that was here, they didn't like being called for every little thing.
Right.
They have other things to do.
They do.
And so for us, it's if we can handle it in-house and not have to get them involved, that's better. And so my officers and my goal is to de-escalate the situation, is to talk. We don't have to go in there all puffed up and start yelling at people. You get them outside and you have a conversation with them. And I think that's important, and it keeps IFPD off the campus for every little incident. So
I really appreciate that. And I think that's good advice for our faculty. So really, faculty, if things are beginning to escalate, they could call the security phone, and then one of you guys would pick it up, and you get a little idea of what's going on and come over and help that faculty member.
Yep.
Okay. So that does sound really good. One of the issues we have with Walmart and the backside of campus, the west side, would be traffic going through. That one of your favorite topics, I'm sure. So talk a little bit about that and what's going on with that.
Well, as most people on campus know, there's a lot of vehicles that go through because we're the straight shot, out to Ashman. So my biggest advice to people walking is to check the parking lot before you walk out. we don't have the largest parking lots you can see across them, and I understand that. But I've had times where I've cleared the parking lot, and as I go to turn, somebody's hauling through the parking lot.
Yeah.
And we have realized, and even IFPD has realized, that when they're coming through, they don't care about what we're doing. They just need to get to the other side or whatever it is. So we're dealing with a lot of speeding. So again, walking, watch out for speeders. And the other issue we're having is people parking however they want, and so my officers are dealing with that, where they come in and someone's taking up 4 spots and they're gone. And the car's just sitting there, or they're parked on a curb, or up on a sidewalk, or.
So what do you do in that particular case? Do you put a ticket on the windshield? Do you have it towed? What's kind of the level of work on it?
It would kind of depend on the situation.
Sure.
If they're blocking an entrance, yeah, they're getting towed.
Oh, sure.
We're gonna get them out of there. A recent incident that happened this week is, a student was parked kind of up on a curb and in the grass. So a report was done, and a note was left on the vehicle that said a report was done. And then with that, IFPD has advised us that if even a sprinkler is damaged, that's considered vandalism.
Okay.
So if they drive on the grass, an issue we have is if we close any of the armed gates, they'll drive up on the grass and drive through campus. And it's like, great, thanks guys, and so you'll see tire marks and whatever else. And so part of what IFPD said is, they break a sprinkler, it's vandalism, because they came into campus and did that. So part of that goes in the report, and so we'll check with maintenance. Hey, is there anything broken? Yeah, there's 3 sprinklers. Okay, well that's, it's small, but it's still something else to go on.
So you have some level of authority then. So if you've got a license plate, for example, you could let the police department know that vehicle was parked improperly.
Parked improperly or driving through the campus improperly. And it helps because it's private property.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can't come in and enforce traffic laws. And now the officer that patrols this area, I've gotten to know pretty well. And so Officer King comes over and he'll sit in the parking lot for us. And I know my officer at night says, the officers that work in the evening, they'll come over and I've kind of told everybody, hey, if you need a bathroom, you need coffee, whatever, just come see us.
No, absolutely. Anything we can do.
I want them here.
We want them here. That's right.
So I work with them, and so they do come as a deterrent.
Yeah.
But when it comes to speeding, there's not much they can do about it. There's not much we can. And so if we can get license plates, or they do something where they break a sprinkler or they damage something, then they have more to go on and they can go get that person. So my officers, even with speeders, they'll get license plates, and they'll either put it in our daily log, or they'll do a report if it's bad enough, and they'll do a report that says vehicle license plate, whatever, did these things going through campus. And then that way I can run that plate. We can see if it's a student, and then we can talk with that student and say, hey, you need to slow down. If it's not a student, our hands are kind of tied and we just got to look for that car if it comes back. But there's not really much we can do, on that end.
I see. I don't know. Yeah, it would be kind of hard to say what we can do. And I don't know if the answer is speed bumps. We've got a little bit of those. I don't know what we can do to slow people down. We don't want anybody hurt on campus.
I actually had Shane Kaiser come and sit with me, and I said, all right, Shane, what can I do?
Right.
And I have a big map in my office on the wall, and I said, okay, Shane, what do I have to do? And he said, honestly, man, he's like, speed bumps, redesign the parking lots. He goes, anything you do, someone's going to speed through. So he's like, you kind of have to pick your battles. And so Greg and I talk about a lot of things that we can do to try to change, add stop signs places, and kind of make more of a specific flow so that they don't have an option of going in the wrong direction.
Sure.
We are sensitive to maintenance because, snow removal it's a big thing.
It is a big thing.
And if we're adding permanent things to the parking lot, that changes that. And so there's temporary things that we've looked at. And, but again, a lot of it's just a process. Is it worth it putting it in there? Like you said, we have speed bumps. They still speed.
Right.
So, but we are looking at the parking lots and trying to figure out little things we can do to try to better that. But
You know, it hasn't been dark lately. We're moving into
Yeah.
shorter days. So if there's a student or staff in a classroom that would be walking out into a dark parking lot, what can they do?
Yeah, they can call the officer that's on at night
Mhm.
and get an escort to their car.
Good. Okay, thanks.
We don't take anybody in our vehicle, so we can't
Right.
drive them across campus.
No,
But we
that's
will
fine.
walk with them and make sure they get there okay. And you know, we as of right now, we've had a lot of those actually,
Oh,
which
really?
is kind of nice. You know,
Well, no, it gives them a lot of comfort. When we do surveys of students in particular, one of the questions we ask is how safe is the campus, and everybody is aware of that. We had an incident in Rigby, two of them actually. We'll get to in a second, but they're just nervous, and when it's
Yeah.
dark, it's not good, and you don't want to walk out necessarily by yourself.
right.
And it's good to know that they can call security.
And I do work with my officers. A thought that I always had working at a college, you know, in law enforcement is this was kind of a silly thing, but it worked. I looked and said, what areas would my mom, my sister, and
Good.
my wife feel uncomfortable?
Right.
And then I would patrol those areas,
Right.
because I knew, well, this is a high traffic area, but it's dark, you know, and so with my officers, I tell them the same thing. Look at those areas that you might feel uncomfortable or someone you know would feel
Right.
uncomfortable. Try to be a presence there. And it sounds like they're doing a good job. I haven't had anybody call me and say otherwise. So
That's good. When it gets dark at 5 o'clock, it'll be a little bit different. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm glad you're doing that. So, what do you know about Rigby? This is a real anomaly, a very two strange circumstances. So, any insights for that?
So on the first incident back in May, as we discussed, I know some things that I can't talk about.
Sure.
Law enforcement side.
No, that's fine.
A big thing from that incident that came up was parents of the students talked to me about when they went to pick up their student, and there was no communication about where they were going, where they were supposed to be, where the pickup point was. And I think that's something that is important to know is if there's an incident like this, everyone will be moved somewhere. You know, if the incident takes place on this campus, they're going to be moved maybe into a building on the other end of campus or into an area where IFPD can keep them safe. You know, it could be that field where
Okay,
construction is about
thought.
to start, but you know, they could be out there, but everybody's going to be moved so that they're in a safe location. There was a couple active shooters that took place while I was on the sheriff's department that were fairly close to me.
Yeah.
One of them close enough that the high school on our campus, I had to move the students. And so
Wow. Okay.
we had to take them from one of our college buildings and move them back into their high school where they can get locked down. And then we had to stand guard and not let the parents in. And
Sure.
as a parent,
You
an
know
awful
that's
feeling.
not what you want to hear.
It's terrible. And I had threats and I had angry parents and I had everybody's, and I just had to look at them and say, this is procedure. You have to wait until everything is cleared and we know where the other shooter is, and that, you know.
Exactly.
And as a parent, you're going to kind of panic. You want your child. I think an important thing is to understand law enforcement's doing their job and they're trying to accomplish the goal that everybody wants, right? A safe campus. And so there's a procedure to that. There's going to be interviews that are going to be done. It's not a short process. And I think patience is kind of a big key in that. So that was one thing that was brought up to me by people outside of law enforcement with the first incident. The second incident, I don't know too much about it, but I will say that the deputy that was on campus that found the weapon, that's just great work. I mean, he was paying attention to the students' actions, and from what I understand, and I could be wrong, he was actually watching an issue where their students were actually taking their backpacks in to put stolen items in it.
Sure.
And that's what he was going after, but that's the lead you got to go on. And he ended up finding a weapon on campus.
Sure.
And that's the bigger thing, right? And so I think it's great that he was paying attention. I think if anybody's kids go to Rigby, that's great to know that their deputy's watching that close, because that means he's paying attention to what's going on.
I think that's good. When you have these kind of incidents, those facilities become hypersensitive to those. Well, okay, active shooter. We had a brief introduction to that, and it was wonderful to have you and the officer from IFPD. But what other detail do you want to talk to faculty and staff about for active shooter?
So, as you sent me the things we were going to talk about, I was kind of racking my brain, and there's a lot, right? Active
There
shooters.
is a lot. Well, first of all, we're going to have more training in this.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's important for everybody to know.
I'm finishing up a tabletop to do with the administration, and then from that, it will lead to active shooter drills and evacuation drills and things like that. And I think a big thing is, and I said it in service, you got to have a plan. You need to know your area. You need to know an escape route, or if there really isn't one, what are you going to do? You kind of need to practice it almost. You need to walk the route. You need to check for variables, because that hallway might be clear right now, but what's it look like at 12 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday? Yeah. Maybe there's a lot more in there, right? Those things are very important. As an officer, when I was patrolling the campus, my partners and I would sit in the car, and, my partner would look at me and say, okay, if this happened right now, what do we do? We're running scenarios. IFPD's running scenarios. Bonneville's running scenarios. We need to do that as well here on campus. We need to be prepared to help them out as much as we can, meaning we need to be able to lock down. We need to know our run route, our hide spot. That helps IFPD, because they can come in and say, dude, that building was locked down. We can now clear through, and we know that the suspect's not in here.
Exactly. And you can lock these buildings electronically, right, from your office.
Yes.
That's really good. I want everybody to know that if you felt that it was important to lock all of the entry doors to the campus, that could be done quite easily.
Yeah, and we're actually upgrading that system, and it will actually be able to be done on a phone.
Okay,
so
good.
We can actually be out and about and see an issue and just hit a button that's going to lock down the campus, and so that's even better. Because right now you got to go into the office and lock down, and so being able to be out, be visible, you see something that's large enough to lock down the campus, you can do that from your phone.
Good. And that's
and go
important.
from there.
So the concept of run, hide, fight still is the recommendation you would give to our faculty and staff.
Absolutely. I did watch getting ready for the tabletop. I've been doing a lot of research on different things, and I did watch a video on it. And one thing that they said that made a lot of sense is run, hide, fight doesn't have to be in that order.
Oh, sure.
And you don't really, and you don't think about it.
Well, sure, but you don't know.
And you don't know, and you could be hiding, and there's a door you didn't remember was unlocked, and the shooter can get in that way. Now you have to fight, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's part of running those scenarios in your head and with your office. And I had one staff member come to me, one faculty member, and she brought up her classroom and said, "Here's my concerns. What do I do?"
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm really glad that they're doing that. We would encourage faculty or staff to catch Bob. I know you. If you were asked, you'd join them in their office or their classroom and point out areas of vulnerability and areas of safety.
And I don't mind walking through small drills, and if there's an office where everybody says, "Hey, let's figure out how to do this," we can walk through a drill and get everybody on the same page. And I think it's important that if we're kind of on the offense, we're ready for anything to happen. It's going to be, a better situation if something does happen.
Would you be comfortable with walking through a scenario right now?
Sure.
Okay, well let's give a scenario and kind of walk through, because I think this would be valuable just to kind of talk it through. So, building 2, you get a call, and this will be an active shooter. So, you get a call from 2 or 3 staff and faculty that there is an active shooter in the foyer of building 2. What are the first things you do, and then what are the things that you would advise anybody in, let's start with building 2, to do?
So the first question I would ask is if somebody called 911, because I would hope they would call 911 before me.
I would hope so. Let's make sure.
I would hope everybody call 911 first.
Let's make sure that everybody would do that.
Let's do that first.
Okay.
if I'm in my office, I'm going to lock down all the buildings.
Right. So you throw the switch and
Just
the front doors are locked, or the doors, exterior doors,
the exterior doors are locked.
All right.
Now the variable is that with security not being armed,
right,
the security officers are not responding.
Yeah, and you shouldn't. That isn't your job.
Not what that does.
Right.
Now, I am a little different because I do have an enhanced carry, and so I will protect as much as I can.
Right.
And I am slightly twisted, so I will go towards the gunfire. That's just kind of how I was trained. That's my mindset. And so if I have an officer on campus and they're in that office, they're going to control notifications and making sure rave goes out and tells everybody, hey, we have an active shooter on campus.
So what do you think the rave would say? What do you think the text would go out?
I'm working on the.
And this isn't fair to you.
No, you're good.
I'm dropping this on you, but
you're good.
These kind of things you're going to drop on you without any notice anyway. So
it will say something along the lines of active shooter on CEI campus. You want to
say building 2?
And no, because he can leave building 2.
Okay.
So if we lock the doors, and maybe he can't get into building 6, but now he can walk into the quad. You don't want people continuing to show up. So you would say on campus, at CEI, and it would say this is not a drill.
Right. Okay, good.
And that would basically be it. Or maybe stay away from campus, but it would be short and sweet because you don't want people to get a long text and have to scroll and read.
Yeah, you don't want to read 3 screens.
Right, and you want it small enough that on the notification on the front of the phone they can read it and know what's going on. So that would go out. Now myself, again, I'm going to go towards the gunfire. I am trained enough to understand that when IFPD gets here, I better not have a gun out. Because they will come at me first.
You bet. Okay, again, some excellent advice.
Yeah. So if you have an enhanced carry and you are allowed to carry here, I would recommend not having your weapon out. I mentioned it in service as an instructor or a staff member with an enhanced carry. Maybe kind of hold down your area.
Right.
Lock that office, and if you're the only armed person in there, you get to be the one that if that shooter gets in, you're going to protect that little area.
That gets to be the third area of fight, but you don't need to be the aggressor because you're going to get in the way.
Don't chase the guy.
And in a second, I'll ask you what the police department will do, but go ahead and finish out. What do you expect faculty to do when they get that rave alert?
So a large percentage of doors on this campus have little magnet strips.
They do.
Yeah. So that you just pull that magnet and the door will be locked. You need to shut the lights off. If you do have something that can, and it is something I'm looking into, but all the windows on the doors, you have something that can fit on it to cover it.
Right.
Even with the light off, they can still look in and see something. If you have a class, this is a life or death matter.
It is.
So I don't care if you break someone's phone, but keep them off their phone. It's very important to not be on your phone. People think even vibrate is fine. No, the phone has to be turned off because vibrate, if that shooter hears silence, he's going to sit there for a minute and wait. Someone's going to cough. Someone's going to scream.
Right.
They're going to do something. Everybody has to be quiet. I tell my kids, I have a 5-year-old. I don't tell her this, but my junior higher and my high schooler, I tell them, I said, look, if an active shooter happens and you're locked down and any of your friends talk, I don't care what you do to them to make them stop.
Right.
Keep them quiet. That's important here as an instructor. You kind of have to be that command presence in that room to get the students to stop talking.
Good.
Now, not all doors have those magnets. We have been shown a couple doors. And I'm working with Gordon to change the locks.
Good. So we'll work on that. And again, this is a big campus with a lot of doors. I'm glad you're looking at
and we're looking at all of that. And so, and again, if you see an issue with a classroom or a set of classrooms, tell me, send me an email, come see me.
Right.
That's actually what the faculty member did is she came in and she said, here's the issue. And then we realized, okay, well, we got to look at this. And I didn't realize that. Yeah, let's take a look. And so I appreciate that. So with the active shooter, though, don't come out. Something that Shane Kaiser from IFPD said that I think is amazing is we're going to send that rave notification to get everybody locked down. Once the situation is over, he brought up the fact that if somebody knocks on a door and says, police department, who's going to open the door? I'm not opening the door, right? Because you're going to say, well, the shooter could say he's the police department.
Of course.
So we're going to send a code word. So a rave notification will go out and say,
oh, good. Okay.
Apple active shooter has been cleared or whatever. IFPD will come to each room.
Right.
And the code word is Apple.
Good.
And if they don't say Apple, you don't
let
them in.
Good.
And so that's going to go out. And so that would be the next thing is somebody does have to have a phone on. You can turn vibrate off. Most people don't know that. If you go to your sounds setting, you can turn the vibrate sound off. So then that way, the instructor I would recommend has it on and can get that code.
And they can see a text.
And they can see the text. Now, you mentioned when law enforcement gets
well, let's talk about what law enforcement would do. Who would respond, and where would they go if they knew it was building 2? What parking lots would they go into, and what would they do?
So there's a couple variables. So number one, if there's an active shooter that goes out, every department's going to show up. So you have state, county, and city.
Anybody with a car is going to come?
Everybody's going to show up. If
Okay.
If there's FBI in town, they're coming. Okay. Everybody's going. Now the other variable is that they don't know where building 2 is.
Right.
So and I've been trying to figure that out, and so has Shane. But it's really hard to get when your adrenaline's going because something's going on. They're going to stop typically, and I don't know if all of the units will do this, but they will typically stop and put on a rifle plate carrier.
Yep.
So they have extra protection, extra body armor, possibly a helmet, maybe not, get a rifle ready.
Right.
And then they're going to drive into campus. Now, their senses are going to be way up here, and they're going to be looking at everything that moves. They're going to be looking at to see if it's the shooter. They could come in right here off of at the Walmart entrance. And that's mainly because that's the one most people think of, right?
Yep.
And that officer might not know the campus well enough and go, I'm coming in there.
Yeah.
There's going to be people running. I think a big key is to get as much information to that officer as possible, as fast as possible.
Right.
The building in the middle over there.
Exactly.
That's it. Shooter's in a red shirt.
Okay.
Cool. That's what we got to look for. And now he can radio that, and the other units can come in that side. The goal that I have, and again, everything can change, right? Is to be at the command post and be able to get them access to the buildings, unlock those buildings.
Yep.
I'm also working on getting, we're going to call them first responder access cards.
Okay.
So that when they show up, I can literally hand them a key card that can get them into those exterior doors. They don't need keys to the rooms because it's an active situation. They're not looking for someone hunkered down. They're looking for gunfire, right?
Exactly.
They're going towards the sound.
Right.
So once it comes to opening doors and things like that, they will come and get me, and I will go with them kind of thing and go open those doors.
What kind of communication device do you normally carry, you and your officers?
So when there are 2 officers on campus, we will carry our radios that we have here on campus.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't talk with IFPD. I'm working with Teton Communications to change that because
that would be good.
Yeah,
so
Shane,
we'll see. We'll support you in that.
Yeah, Shane had mentioned that and just said, hey, if you can switch over and say,
sure,
we have an active shooter. Here's where you should come in. This is where the building is. Then they actually know where to go, and so we're working on that.
Okay, good.
But they're going to start clearing buildings, and they're going to go through. I can't speak on their tactics.
No, that's fine.
I know them, and then I also don't know them. I know the base, right? But they're going to train a little different than I did.
But if they know for sure that the perpetrator is in building 2, they will all go to building 2, and they've got a process of clearing that building and protecting faculty, staff, and students.
And I have I'm in the process of making a kit that I will take with me to the command post that I can give the commander, whoever's running the incident. And right now, I think it's actually Shane because he's the SWAT commander. So I think it would be Shane. Yeah, but I could hand Shane the map of the building.
Good.
And he can sit on the radio and talk to his guys. Nobody can hear him. They got an earpiece in, and they're going to clear that building. He's silent.
Yeah.
But he's going to tell them, hey, when you get to this point, turn right, or turn left, or hey, there's a tower in the middle of this hallway that you're going into. So that's kind of important, is having that map, and giving them those directions. Then they're going to go through and they're going to find the shooter, and we know how that ends.
We do.
So once that happens, they're going to clear building 2 first. They're going to get everybody out of building 2.
Right.
And put them in whatever that evacuation area is.
Well, in fact, let's pause for a second, because we
Okay.
do have a question exactly asking that. So where would we try to send students in this exact scenario that you?
So I've been racking my brain out. Shane's kind of busy. He's getting ready to retire. So
Sure.
I'm waiting for him to come over, and we're going to actually go through some of this.
Okay.
Because I want to know where the evacuation point is. Something that I'm going through right in this tabletop is in my active shooters, it was large. We had people shooting at us. We had bombs. We had the IEDs. There's just stuff everywhere. Anything they could think of,
Okay.
they would throw at us, because you got to be prepared for the worst.
Well, sure.
And
Yeah.
so the issue that doesn't really get thought about is that if the shooter comes in with a backpack,
Mm-hmm.
and the backpack's full of ammo, no bomb, no explosive,
Right.
but he drops that backpack outside of building 2 because he knows he's going to circle back around.
Right.
And he goes inside and then is caught or dies in building 2. That backpack's outside. They have to clear the campus
Right.
because they don't know what's in it, and it could blow up the campus.
Well, no,
right?
it could. That makes perfect sense.
So to me, you got 2 options for the evacuation, and IFPD will take care of this, but they will take us to the mall.
I was
away.
wondering, or to
Or
Walmart,
to
would be
Walmart.
possible, but essentially get across the
You're
street,
gonna have to
and
be
that
across
may
the
be
street.
that may be a really good place to be.
And they'll get Al Sporting Goods empty. They'll get that whole shopping center, the apartments, depending on the bag, depending on how many,
Sure.
things like that. So that part I know. When it comes to where they're going to put people in this specific situation, I would say, if the weather's like this, if it's this day like this, they're going to put them in that field.
Okay.
And they're going to have them sit there, and it's a good point away from the building, and they're going to be over there questioning everybody, seeing what they saw, and
But nobody's driving a car off campus.
Nobody's leaving. Nobody's leaving.
Okay.
Nobody's coming in.
Right.
Again, it's hard because it's going to hit the news like that. The media has a scanner. They're hearing everything that's going on.
Yeah.
They're going to be here. They're going to be ready to get that great shot.
Right.
Well, that means all your loved ones are getting the news, and they're going to want to show up here, and they need to wait. And I don't care if they wait in Walmart's parking lot. That's close, and then they
it's
can
fine.
wait.
But again, it's across the street, and
Once they get here and you have an officer telling you to go away, that's a pretty bad feeling. So prepare everyone for that.
in essence, the whole campus is a crime scene. Then
Everything.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've brought up is, and Shane agrees, is that if an individual goes out and stands in the middle of the quad, and let's say he and his girlfriend were in a fight, and he shoots his girlfriend and shoots himself.
Yeah.
Right. It's pretty cut and dry. There's one suspect, 2 victims, right?
Right.
He killed himself, so now they're both dead. The entire campus will still get questioned.
Sure.
Because somebody in building 6 could have been walking and having to look out a window and saw something. Someone in building 5 might have been in the bathroom while he's in there crying, and they saw. Everybody's got to get questioned. So it doesn't matter where the incident is; we're all getting questioned.
Exactly.
And it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
So once that's clear, then they'll give the campus back to us.
Okay.
Right. So and again, it could take all day, all night. I don't know. It just depends on how fast they're able to get through everything. And they obviously have to clean the building too, right? And
of course.
They have to take care of those things. So it's not like it's going to happen fast, but that's something that you'll get to deal with.
Well, exactly. That's right. But Bob, that is, I think, a really good explanation of what we're going to do. If you're watching, I would really, we'll have this up on YouTube and probably Facebook. But for any of our faculty and staff that are watching, please pass along that the kinds of things that you heard, and I'll send a note out this Sunday and ask that if anybody's interested in how an active shooter scenario might work on campus. I think that's one of the best walkthroughs, and Of course, you do this for a living, so I didn't surprise you too much with it, but and we'll spend more time with it. But I think that would be a wonderful explanation so that everyone knows kind of how this works from the police and sheriff and to you
Yeah.
and us. So Bob, thank you for being a guest today.
Thank you.
This
Appreciate
is
it.
wonderful. We ran out of time.
Yeah.
That's a good
That was
thing.
good,
But again, we're going to plan on having some more formal trainings as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
you are a great fit here, and we appreciate having you.
I appreciate being here. It's great.
Yeah, so good. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So I wish you all a great weekend. I think it's going to be a beautiful weekend. So thanks for joining Bob and I, and we'll see you next Friday.